Hey high schoolers, this is Skill Builder 2, sponsored by Riley's Doodle Board, and today you are going to need the sight reading book for string orchestra. Now before we get into our exercises here for today, I do want to remind you to be practicing those 3 scales that we've been working on in class. That's C major, D major, and A major. Remember, my goal for each of you is that you'll be able to play 7 scales with confidence by the end of the year. And so we're starting the year off great with 3 scales, but if you're still struggling with them, make sure you take some time this week to work on them, because in a couple of weeks you're going to have the chance to demonstrate for me that you have those scales down. We will continue to practice them in class, and if you feel like you need some extra help, I'm always here 10th period, and I'd be happy to go over scales with you then. And remember, it's 2 octaves for everyone for all 3 scales except for bass. I would say bass, you can probably do the A major scale in 2 octaves and then the others in 1 octave. So that's all I'm going to say about scales. I just wanted to make sure you knew to keep working on them, and soon you'll have a chance to show me what you know with those 3 scales. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt your lesson, but I think you're going to like what I have to say, so make sure you stick with me. I appreciate how hard everyone is working to adjust to this new lesson format, and so sometimes I want to give you the chance to be rewarded for doing the things I've asked you to do. And so this week, you are going to be able to enter into the 90s candy giveaway. I have all of these different 90s candies that were super popular when I was a kid, and I thought this would be a fun thing for you to have a chance to win. So one person from each class will win to pick one of these that they'd like to have as a prize, and then there, of course, will be plenty extra for us to do this again in a future week. But to enter, all you have to do is by the next day 1, because that's when you have until to watch this video, send me an email, and all it has to say is, hey, I watched Skill Builder 2. And that's how I'll know you watched this, and you'll get entered into the contest. Now, even if you're not super into this candy and maybe you don't want one, send me the email anyway. That way I know you watched the video, and if you happen to win, you can give your prize to a friend. So speaking of friends, it's going to be very tempting to want to just tell your friends to email me so that they can get entered into the contest. And there's 2 things about that I wanted to tell you. First of all, the more people who are entered, the less of a chance you'll have to win. So don't just go around telling people to enter. It'll actually make your chance of winning less. But the second thing is about being a good friend, because I understand you might want some of your friends to have a chance to win. And so being a good friend would be encouraging them to do the thing they should be doing, which is what you're doing right now, watching the video so that they can find out about the contest, right? So if you want to be a good friend, encourage your classmates to watch the video, and then they'll have a chance to enter the contest. By just telling them to send me an email, you're actually encouraging them to do something they shouldn't be doing, slacking on their work. And so make sure you're just being a good friend by telling your classmates to watch the video, and that way the contest will be fair. It'll be just people who watched the video and did what they were supposed to do, okay? So send me that email by the next day 1, and we're going back to your lesson. Today we're going to be looking at numbers 5 and 6. We are going to use stars to help us look through these exercises and see what things we need to know before we play to set us up for success. And then we're going to work on the parts throughout the week and make sure you're ready to play them in class next day 1. So today I actually am only going to go over number 5 with you, and then I'm going to leave you to do number 6 independently. So we're going to start by going through stars, and I hope doing this with number 5 shows you that this does not always have to be a big ordeal where it takes you 10 minutes. There normally are a lot of things as a high schooler that you've already experienced that aren't new and that shouldn't be anything crazy for you. So it's just important that we take the time to look for these things, but eventually you might be able to use stars and do it in 30 seconds in your head. And so we're going to jump right in here with the S. Sharps and flats, another way of saying key signature. The key signature for number 5 has 1 sharp, that's F sharp, which means we're in the key of G major. Should be pretty straightforward for most of us because we have played in the key of G major a lot. The one note that tends to trip some students up is the C natural. Remember, your F's are sharp, but your C's are natural. So especially violins and violas, when you get to the A string, make sure that second finger is right next to your first finger. Other than that, it's a very straightforward key that we should all be pretty comfortable playing in. Next, the T, our time signature. Again, super easy. The time signature is 4/4. You've been playing in this time signature since you were a beginner in the 4th grade. And so I'm not really going to say much about that other than if you look ahead, the key signature and the time signature stay the same throughout the whole exercise, so we don't have to worry about those changing. Moving on to accidentals. There is only one section in this exercise that has an accidental, and so that belongs to the second violins. You guys are the winners here. In measure 19, at the last note, you have a C sharp. That's a C sharp on the G string. That's where you have a space between your second and third finger. We actually have been working on that note in our A major scale and in Viva La Vida, so this is a great chance to show that you know how to play that in tune. Rhythm are very simple, straightforward, and easy rhythms in this exercise. I'm actually not going to say anything about them because as 9th through 12th graders, I expect you to be able to play these rhythms perfectly. And finally, signs. There are a few signs and symbols that I want to point out. Some you may already know about and just need a reminder. Some might be new to you. And so we're going to start with bow directions. You can see throughout this they do an awesome job of marking bow directions. Now in an orchestra, it's important that at least within our section we are moving our bows together in the same direction. Sometimes you might have different bow directions than another section, although in this exercise it looks like our bows are moving together the whole time. We actually have similar rhythms and similar bow directions, except for maybe one or two little sections where they are different. But it helps us look more unified, and it also helps us sound more unified if we're moving our bows together. So make sure you are paying attention to those. For the most part, it's straightforward, down, up, and it just, you play it as it comes. But sometimes there is a retake, and you need to make sure you are observing that. Second thing to look at with signs, the dynamics. We have been working in Riverside Celebration, adding our dynamics in. It makes it more enjoyable, it makes it more dramatic, it makes it more interesting for the listener and for the person playing. I think it makes it more interesting too. So if we look through, our dynamics are the same across the board for everyone. So starting at measure 1, we are mezzo piano. It's medium soft, so not starting out super loud like a lot of our pieces, but we're starting out nice and gentle mezzo piano. At measure 7, we all change to mezzo forte, so just a little bit louder. And then at measure 13, we drop down to pianissimo. That's basically the quietest that you can play while still being audible and having a good tone. In measure 20, we have a crescendo, and it's going to be a pretty big crescendo because we have just 4 beats to get from pianissimo actually, to mezzo forte in measure 21. So we're going to make sure we have a nice crescendo over those 4 beats, gradually getting louder to mezzo forte. And then we finish off in measure 27 with forte, and we're forte all the way through the end. So make sure as you are practicing this, once you get the notes down, you go back and make sure you can play it with the dynamics. Speaking of dynamics, something that the composer has added in to kind of help you be successful with the dynamics is at the end of measure 12. You'll see in very, very tiny font and parentheses, it says stay at tip. And you might wonder, what does that mean? Well, the note that you've played before is a dotted half note, a 3-beat note, and it's a down bow. 1, 2, 3. Your next note is also a down bow. Normally, you would pick up your bow and do a retake to be ready for the next down bow. But since your notes in measure 13 are pianissimo, the composer has said, stay at the tip, leave just enough bow for a small quarter note, because you're not going to use a lot of bow at pianissimo, right? And stay up there that whole time that you're pianissimo. This is a trick to help you play a little bit softer because it's a little bit harder in the lower half of the bow to play soft. So we're going to try to do that whole section from 13 all the way to 20 up in the upper half of our bow. And then at measure 20 we have an up bow, and it's actually a great thing to do a crescendo on an up bow because as you go up, the weight of your bow helps you create that crescendo, right? There's more weight down in the lower half, and so we kind of naturally are able to crescendo, and then as we add more force, we'll make it an even bigger crescendo. So they have actually done the work of helping you be able to do these dynamics a little bit more effectively. They've written in some directions to help us, so that's always a nice thing. Finally, at the end, it says R-I-T, ritardando, which means to slow down. So we're going to make sure when we practice it at measure 31, we know that we need to slow down. And when we practice it in class, you'll all watch me, and I will show you how much or how little to slow down. And we can have some fun with that and make it really dramatic by really stretching out those last few notes. So that is number 5. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go through and play every part. Just like last time, I will put the signs up on the board so you can fast forward. I don't expect you to watch every part, although if you want to practice your part with a different part to see how they fit together, that is okay. That would be a great challenge. But I'm going to go through and play each part with the dynamics, making sure I'm following the directions that it's giving, and then I will leave you to work on number 6 on your own. So remember, next day 1, you're coming back knowing your having worked on your 3 major scales, knowing number 5 and knowing number 6. All right, so let me get my violin, and we are going to start with violin 1. Okay, there it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Violin 2. Oh, there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Viola. And violas, it looks like you have some notes on the C string, so I'm going to play those up an octave when we get there. 1, 2, 3, 4. at violas. I missed a couple notes around 16 there, but I'm sure you have those down. It's very repetitive, so that's similar to what happened before. Moving on to cello. And cellos, doesn't look like you go lower than G, so we are good. Here we go, cellos. 1, 2, 3, 4. And last but not least, the bass part. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, guys, have a great week. We'll see you in class.